Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Timmy Kemza James. So in today's video, I'm going to show you how to draft this really simple and cute dress. So disclaimer, I'm not the original designer of this particular dress, but in our next video, I'll show you the finished look of mine. So I'm going to be using the basic bodice pattern. So guys, for this basic dress pattern, I'm going to be marking my basic neckline, which is 6 inches, but I'm working with half of my body, so it will be divided by 2, which is 3. Now this line that I have here is just a baseline which will serve as my starting point. Now I'm going to mark my basic shoulder, which is 16 divided by 2. I have 8. So from that point, I'm coming down by 1 inch like so, and I'm going to connect that shoulder, the new shoulder point, to my neckline like so. So I have my basic shoulder. So for someone who is like me, who your shoulder is wider than 16 inches, you extend your line, and if it's shorter than 16 inches, you reduce from here. But for me, I'm adding, so my shoulder is 18 inches, so I'll be adding 1 inch from this point, from that 16-inch point. I'll be adding 1 inch to give me 18 inches, so which I have here, this point like so. So from that point, I'll mark my armhole line. So I'll come down and mark my armhole mark, which is 8.5. So from the shoulder, I'm marking 8.5. Now I'll measure what I have from my starting point to that 8.5 inches point, and I'll come over to this point like so and mark the same thing. Then I'll connect the line into a straight line. So this will give me my chest line and also double as my armhole point, right? So I'll label this chest line. Then from this line as well, I'll come down to my bust point and mark my bust point, which is 12.5. Now the distance from your shoulder to your bust point is what you're marking. I'll mark 12.5, and I'll go ahead and rule the line. So here we go. So this is going to be our bust point, so you label this bust line. So I'm going to mark from the shoulder to the under bust as well. So I'll mark my under bust, which is 16.5, or let me just work with 17, so I get a nice cup effect. So this is my under bust. I'll go ahead and rule out my under bust measurement. So I'll write under bust. So the next thing is my affluence point, or my upper waist, or affluence, whatever you want to call it. So I like working with 20 inches, so I'll mark 20. So you go ahead and take this body measurements for your own self. The measurements are usually not the same, so you work with your own measurements. So I'll go ahead and connect like so. Then the next measurement is going to be my hip line. So from my shoulder to my hip line here, I have 26. That's because I'm tall. You go ahead and rule that. Then the next will be the length of your dress. So whatever the length that you want to work with, you go ahead and mark the length of your dress. Length of my dress, and I labeled it as well, my hip and my affluence as well. So now for this point here, which is my shoulder point, I'm going to square it, but first off, I'll find out what that point is here. So I'll go ahead and square the line like so. Then I'll draw it out like so from my shoulder to the chest point like so. So the next thing, on my bust point line, I'm going to mark half of my bust span measurement. Your bust span measurement is the distance from one nipple to another. So I'll mark that point on my bust line, and I'm going to extend the line down to the length of the dress. So that bust span measurement is going to go all the way down to the length of the dress. have it like this. Now on my afferents line, I'm going to take in 1 inch on both sides for my dart. So I'll mark 1 inch here and 1 inch here. That's on my afferents line. So the same thing on my under bust, I'm going to mark 1 inch here and 1 inch here, right? So I'm going to be connecting these points, these affluence points, to my hip line like so, and I'll connect this other side like so as well. Don't mind this breakage you have here. That's my sellotape. I had to tape 2 cardboard papers because I'm working with cardboard. I want the pattern to, I want to reuse the pattern, so I'm using cardboard instead. So I'll connect this affluence line to my under bust, and I'll connect it to my bust point measurement to give me my darts. So darts are meant to give shape and to take out excesses on your outfit, so it's so it accentuates your figure, right? So I have my regular darts here. So the next thing that I'm going to be doing is to mark my bust measurement. So I'm going to be marking half of my bust, a quarter of my bust measurement, right? So I'll mark a quarter of it. Then on my affluence point, I'm going to mark a quarter of my affluence measurement as well, or my waist measurement. Then on my hip measurement, I'll mark I'm going to go ahead and mark a quarter of my hip measurement. So I'm going to be connecting that like so. You can go ahead and use your hip curve if you do have one. So you connect like so, and I'm going to connect to this side as well. From my bust to my affluence, I'll connect like so. And then on the length of the dress, if you want the dress to be like pencil out, you just, depending on how wide you want that to be, that's what you're going to use. So I'll just go ahead and pencil that a little bit. Then I'll go ahead and make my curve like so, just a little bit of the curve. Then I'll connect in a straight line from here, right? So you can see our dress is beginning to take shape, right? So the next thing that I'm going to be doing is to mark my neckline. So for now, I'm going to just maintain a little bit of a V neckline. So I'm working with 6.5 inches depth, right? So I want the dress to sort of be like an off-shoulder dress, not necessarily that kind of off-shoulder, but a little bit off my shoulder. So I'm just going to mark from my shoulder point. I'm marking 2 inches downwards like so. So that's how, so it's not going to be so low. So that's the 2 inches that I have there. So I'll just use my curve to sort of gently create like a sweetheart shape. So whatever shape you want to work with, you can go ahead and draft that. So this is what I have now. So for this side, I'm going to extend down my 5-inch line, right? So this bust pan, because I want to add my dart on this point as well, on the upper side of the dress. So I'll extend it, that 5-inch point like so. So I'll extend my bust pan upwards, right, to this point. Now the next thing that I'm going to be doing is to mark my dart. So I'm going to be working with 1 inch on both sides as well. So I mark 1 inch here and 1 inch here. So I'll connect it to my bust point like so. I'll be coming to go ahead and mark further, right? But for now, let's work with 1 inch on both sides. So I have my upper dart and my lower dart, right? So I'm going to do what we call an under bust tightening on the under bust, so that it enables more curves on the bust point, right? So my under bust measurement is what I'm going to mark on my under bust. So my under bust measurement divided by 4 is usually smaller than your affluence. So my underbust measurement divided by 4 is what I will mark here. Sorry. So I'll mark that here, and then I'll measure what I have here. I have 1.5 from here. This is my underbust point mark. So I'll measure what I have from here to here. I have 1.5. So on this side of my bodies, I'll add 1 inch. I'll mark 1 inch. That's starting from that leg here. I'll mark 1 inch, and the other half inch I'll mark from this other that leg to this point, like so. Then I'll go ahead and use my French curve to sort of curve it out, right? So I'm just looking for the best way to give me that. It's supposed to be like this, but I wanted a little bit more room, so I'll just go ahead and use my curve to sort of curve it out, like so. And I'll flip it and do the same thing to this side. So I have it like this. So from there, I'm going to be connecting the line to the hip, like so. Right, so we have our underbust like this. So there's more dart here. So now let's extend this dart to sort of give it a nicer feel on this side, right? So what I'm going to do is to add 0.75 on this side, just on the side. I'm not adding to the center, just to tighten that neckline a little bit more. Then I'll go ahead and connect it like so. I would like to use a little bit of a curved line. So this is what I have. So for the neckline, I want it to be more V, so I might drop the neckline a little bit more by 1 inch, like so. And let me maintain a V-shaped neck, connect it like this, right? So this is what we have. Now we've taken 2 inches of that here, so on this line I'm going to replace that 2 inches that here. So you're definitely not going to leave it out like that. You replace that 2 inches here. So on this side, you measure the dart that you have here. I have 0.6 inches dart. So on this line, I'll replace the 0.6 inches from here. I'll replace it here. Now I'm going to need 1 inch to join this panel to this panel. So I'll mark that 1 inch like so. Then I'll connect to this point in a curve to give me my armhole curve. Connect like this. Then you mark your sewing allowance. So I'll work with 2 inches. I'll mark 2 inches like so, right? So the next thing we are going to do is to pay back these darts. Darts are always debts, guys, so you have to pay it back. So on the affluence point, we have a total of 2.2 inches dart. So I'll pay back that 2.2 inches dart here. Then I'll need 1 inch to join the both panels. I'll mark the 1 inch. Then I need 2 inches sewing allowance. Then I'll mark that here. So I'll connect the bust point and that point there, like so. Then the next thing is my hip point. I'll need 1 inch to join here and here. So I'll mark the 1 inch, because as you can see, there's no dart on my hip. So I'll just mark 1 inch. Then I need 2 inches joining allowance. Then I'll mark the 2 inches and I'll connect like so. Don't worry about the weird shape, it's because of these darts. That's why that side is looking like that. Then the same thing on the hem, 1 inch to join the both panels and 2 inches sewing allowance. So I'll mark and then I'll connect like so. So here we go. This is our front bodies. So I'm going to flip the paper, then I'll show you how to draft your back bodies. So for the front side, before I go, I will measure this line because I'm going to be joining this line to this one. So I'll have to measure to ensure that it's the same thing. So I'll first of all measure this side panel here. So you can see it does not align. So this one is longer than this one. So I'll just mark the remaining, whatever I have left, I'll mark it here like so. Then I'll extend this line up to that point like so. Then I'll draft my new neckline from there. So this will be the new neckline. So this is the center front and my side front, right? So I'll flip the paper so I can show you how to draft the back. But first off, I will replace the straight lines on the back as well. So I have all my lines ruled. So this is my chest line, and this is my bust line, and my affluence line or my waist line. Then, sorry, this is my under bust line, then my affluence line, then my hip line, and then my length there. So on the chest line, I'll mark 1/4 of my bust measurement like so, right? Then on my affluence line, I'll mark 1/4 of my waist measurement like so, and on my hip line, I'll mark 1/4 of my hip measurement. Then the same thing I used on the front for my length, I'll go ahead and mark the same thing like so. Mind you, I've not added my zipper allowance, which is supposed to be on the center back, which is here. So I'll do that when I'm cutting my fabric. So I'll go ahead and connect my points like so. So now the next thing I'm going to do is to make my armhole curve. Now you remember I came down by 2 inches on the shoulder in the front. I'll just do the same thing here like so. Then the neck depth, remember we worked with 6.5, or you can go deeper at the back, whatever works for you. So I'll work with 7 at the back. Connect it in a V like this. Then on my chest line, now my bust span measurement, I'll mark it on my chest line like so, and I'll mark till the hem as well. I'll go ahead and rule that. So the back is pretty simple. It does not have anything serious like the front. So on the affluence line, I'll take 1/2 inch on both sides. So I do not have bust or anything on the back side, so the back is pretty simple. So I'll just connect that point like this to the chest line and like this. Then I'll do the same thing to the hip line like so. I'll just extend the bust span measurement up to here like so, and I'll just do 0.25 on each side here. 0.25 here, 0.25 here. Is not a big dart, and connect it to the bust span measurement. So here we go. So this is our back basically. So for the back, on the affluence line, on the center point of the affluence line, I'll just mark 1/2 inch on that point to eradicate bulkiness when I'm adding my zipper. So I'll just go ahead and connect up to the neck point here, and I'll use a curve to do the same to the hip point on this side, right? So here we go. So this is our back. So basically this is what we are cutting out, like so. So this is the side back and this is the center back. So there's nothing really much to the back, right? So we'll go ahead and add our 2 inches. I will pay our dart on our affluence point and add our 2 inches sewing allowance, and this is it. So this is the back side and this is the front side here. So for the front, we'll start cutting from here. So I'll cancel this point. So this is the neckline now. From this point, like so, is where I'm going to be cutting. So I'll cut that and I'll cut our material. Then in our next video, we'll be sewing the dress alongside every other thing that needs to be sewn. So let's just get into that. So for our front bodies, I'm going to keep the center front aside, and I'll be tightening the shoulder, the armhole, so that it sits really nice and snug. So from the bust point here, from this bust point, I'm going to go up by 1 inch so I can tighten this. I'll tighten my shoulder, my armhole, sorry. So on the armhole line, I'm going to tighten by 1 inch. So I'll just find half of the main armhole, which is around 5 inches. So I'll mark 5 inches here. Then I'll mark 1/2 inch on both sides of that 5 inches, right? So I'm going to pivot it to the bust point here. So that 1 inch to the bust point, I'll just arrow it there, like so, right? So I'm going to be, this 1 inch that I went up here, I'll connect it to the bust point as well. Then I'm going to be cutting these like so. So I'll just cut like so. I'm not cutting through, so I'll cut one of the dart legs on this side as well to the bust point. So you can actually do this before you even get far, as you're still drafting the body, but I sort of like doing this after. So I'm going to close this dart here on the armhole. I'll close the dart like so, and I'll tape it down. So I'll come and close this dart as well. So now it's going to create more room on the bust line. You might not see it now, but I'll close this one as well. this angle that I have here, because of that closing of that, I'm going to trim it off. But there are scenarios that you don't have to trim them, you have to fill them in. So if you're conversant with my videos, you will understand what I mean. So for this one, because it's the armhole area, it's fine for me to trim it off. But if not so, you would need to fill it instead of trimming it. So this is it. This is our side bodies and our front bodies. So I'll go ahead and cut it out on fabric. So this is it. See you in my next video, guys, which I'll show you how to join this dress. If you have not yet liked my video, do ensure to like. Please share my video with your friends and subscribe, guys. Bye.